All right. Awesome. So, welcome to our author reader book club. And we have author TM Goodkey tonight visiting with us, and we're super excited. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her book. So, tell us the book that you are sharing with us tonight.
Okay, so I am sharing with you A Spy's Fateful Bond, which is this lovely little
Ooh, it's
thing.
on the cover.
I love the cover. It is one of my favorite things about this book.
Well
I
done.
mean, obviously the book as well, but
Yes, but covers, let's be honest here, covers sell books.
they do. And so this is book one, or it's like part one, part two, so it's a duology. So
Oh, nice.
book one is this, but the matching one,
Ooh,
they're just
also,
such a lovely set. I
that's
can't get
so
over
pretty.
how much I love the covers. They're just so pretty.
Lucky
Um,
girl.
Sorry,
Lucky girl. I love it. You got a good designer.
I did Mibble art if you're into that sort of thing.
All right. I'll
Um,
write that down.
yeah. Anyway, so a spy's faithful bond is the fated mates trope. You've got a Fey King who is pretty intimidating for everybody around him, and he's not exactly the most lovable person. But he has a best friend, and his name is Mallory. And so Timus the king and Mallory have like the best banter, if I'm allowed to even say that, because I know I wrote the book. But I just absolutely love their characters together. And it's about this young woman who was forced to be a spy by the people who kidnapped her father. And so, as long as she continues to send information back, nothing will her father won't die. But a little trip from the human kingdom to the Fey kingdom, as the lady's maid to a duke's daughter, she stumbles upon the Fey king, and turns out they are spirit bonds. Is kind of what I've called them. So fated mates, essentially. So
Awesome.
that's book one, to help get her father rescued.
Oh, cool. Well, who's your favorite character in this book and why?
Probably Mallory. He's a little bit he's hilarious, and he has one of those charismatic personalities that makes everybody feel really comfortable, but he's a little bit like unfiltered, and his background is such that he didn't grow up in like the nobility of the Fey
Mhm.
realm. So he's very down to earth, even though he is noble by birth. And so I kind of love that there's this dichotomy between how he was raised and how he kind of acts now. So he's definitely my favorite, and everybody who reads the book absolutely loves Mallory and his banter with the king. And then he ends up having really amazing banter with the female lead, Amelia's brother. And they tend to like kind of bicker back and forth. So it's kind of funny. They got a bromance going on there.
That's awesome because I really do feel like we read books for chemistry between the characters. And I'm not just talking about the two leads, right? Like, I'm talking about like there has to be explosive character interaction with all the characters in your book. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I found that as I continue to write, I always like to like put in like a little side character that everybody seems to love. And I am a happily ever after diehard.
Oh, yes.
I don't love killing off like important lovable characters. I I I see the place for them though. I really do. I'm just people call my work cozy fantasy, because you can
Oh,
just
I
like
love it.
curl up and read it. And I think that's just kind of who I am as a person. I just like to like I love, and I love like excitement and adventure and political intrigue, but it's got to be really like the characters have to mesh really well.
Right. And I love that sense of harmony. I know that we have to have like conflict in our stories, but I love it that there isn't like I don't like the horror aspects. You know, there's always a little bit of horror in my books, but not like everything is like dark and depressing. Like I read to escape. I read to live in a world that I would
Yeah.
want to live in, right? Not some
Yeah.
crazy world where I'm like, I can't sleep at night.
I know it's true, and I mean I've read some really amazing books that keep me on the edge of my seat,
Same.
but I always like have this this little thing in the back of my mind. Is like, but everybody needs to be happy at the end of the story, and all the mean guys need to have like,
Punished.
yeah, they need to be punished. Maybe I'm just like a little bit too optimistic or idealistic potentially, but I just
Idealistic,
love it.
yes. That's awesome. Wonderful. Well, I'm excited to read your book. I love cozy fantasy. I'm super excited about this. It's a kind of an emerging genre. So I'm kind of excited. I actually have some ideas for my own cozy fantasy too. So I'm super excited. And yeah, that's awesome.
I
All right.
guess I should also mention that
Yeah.
it's closed door, so just in case people are
Yeah.
hoping for that, I write closed door, so I feel like I
Yes.
should say
So
that as well.
most of the people that are reading in this book club, most of them I know them personally. I know a lot of these people personally. And they are, yeah, they're closed door. And a lot of people can read a pretty good, I won't say heat level because heat level means like spice level, but I mean they can have some really good, sexual tension and
Tension.
everything.
Yeah.
Nobody, like at least the people that I have gathered around me, they don't want to see it acted out on the page in any kind of form. It's okay, close the door. We'll just, have let them have their privacy is always what I say. I like to have let my characters have their private moments be private. And then I also say your imagination is way better than what I could write. So imagine what you will.
Absolutely. Yeah, probably. Yeah, actually I have my 9-year-old daughter read my book. I have written my books for like adults. It's not for
Yes.
young
Yes.
adults. That being said, I know what I wrote, and so I'm fine with my daughter reading
Yes.
it. But I've written another book, and she got through it, and she was like, "Mom, why didn't they kiss?
Oh,
And why aren't they getting married?" I just it
I
was the
love it.
first time I've written a slow burn too, so I was laughing pretty hard because I'm like,
She was ready for it. She was
she
ready
was so ready for
for
it.
it.
Meanwhile, like the first, like you can tell right away in this book, like Timus is like, let's do this, let's go and get married and spend the rest of our lives together. Amelia's a little bit more hesitant, but like there's a kiss in this one, so she she was
Ooh.
very like, Mom, you did not write this correctly.
Your 9-year-old daughter is censoring your romance books.
I know, I
Hilarious.
know.
I
Nearly
love it.
killed me. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is like a thing in slow burn, and I was trying
Yes,
it out because I love coming together super quickly, and so anyways, that was pretty funny.
good
She's a
for
funny
you.
kid.
Good for you. I actually love slow burn. I actually have a really hard time because like when some I don't really read romances like as the genre. I actually read romance with something else, fantasy, like, like your books or I don't know, mixed with any other genre, mystery or whatever. And so
Right.
when somebody told me they're like, "Oh yeah, so then at the halfway point they kiss." And I was all like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "No, no, they don't kiss until the very end, man. You gotta keep if they kiss in the middle, then that's just like giving up. Like the story's over, right? So I had to learn a little bit about how to write romances because I was like, no, all of them are super slow burn. Like they go until the very end. They don't kiss until the end. So I had to learn a little bit about writing romances. That's so funny that your daughter's already knows so much more than I do about romances. I feel ashamed, but super
Well,
fun.
it is really interesting. Like she wasn't reading before I started writing a little bit more
Mhm.
full time, and then she's like, "Well, I want to read your book,"
Yeah.
and like she's 9, and this is like adult level reading. Now, it's not like I use giant words or anything like that,
No, but the
but
complex characters, the
yeah,
problems are adult problems. They're not like little
exactly,
kid problems. I get it. I get it.
yeah. So
9-year-olds read it and enjoy it.
yeah, so that was really cool. Actually, she's become so good at it. My last book, she was reading through it. She actually picked out 5 editing mistakes, and
Oh,
like 2 of them were like context mistakes, and I was like,
wow. Hire her for the
"You're
context
fine."
editor. You're like, girl, you're hired.
Exactly.
Give you food for payment and rent.
Exactly. Oh
That's
goodness.
awesome. No, that's great. Like honestly, like my daughter, she's 21, she's going to college. And she's starting to write books with me. Like she's like, okay, let me finish school, but when I'm done with school, I want to write books with you. And honestly, that just like made my day. Like I was all like, that is my dream job right there with me and my daughter writing little cozy, fantasy romances. Oh, that would be the dream right there. So awesome that you've
That
got
actually
a
sounds
partner in crime
fantastic.
too. So tell me a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind sharing. You've got a daughter.
I do. I have a daughter who's 9. I have a son who's 7. And they're both growing like weeds. Half the time I can't keep up with them. I'm from Canada. I live in Ontario. So we have like
How
several feet of snow right
Hey, how
now.
cold is it there? I'm like sitting in my living room and it's 65 degrees outside. Hold on. If I translate, it's not
That's
quite 24, it's like
19.
20, yeah, 19, 20 degrees Celsius, girl. And
Right.
it's cold.
So here, I don't know what this would be in Fahrenheit, but here it's negative 16 tonight.
Oh yeah, that's chilly.
Yeah. So it's
It's the
it's a
closer
bit.
you get to negatives, the closer the Fahrenheit, and it just gets all so cold that you just go, it's just cold. It's negative numbers. It's cold. Good
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah, my husband actually just came back in from blowing the snow because we got over a foot of snow last night. Because
Oh,
of course we did. 'Cause we live
Canada.
here in a bit. We live a bit north in Ontario, so we get quite a bit of snow where I live. Um, yeah, so I've been writing since last year. It was like a little random thing I stumbled upon that I realized I could do. It was such an odd thing. I was at home, my kids were homeschooling. I just needed to do something. And I started ghostwriting actually.
Oh wow.
And so I got hired by a publisher and they hired me out to write a couple books. So I wrote a paranormal romance,
Wow.
a book 1, book 2, and while I was writing this, a couple things kind of popped up. First, it was like, okay, I really didn't want to write explicit content, which I told the
Right.
publisher, and they were kind enough to allow me to kind of like leave those little pockets for what where they
Somebody else.
wanted the content.
Yeah.
So I was very, very grateful. But as I was writing it, I realized I could write fairly quickly.
Oh,
I could write a 60,000 word book for in about a month and a half,
nice.
uh, which I didn't realize was one fast, and two, I didn't realize it was a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize a lot of things. I read a lot, but I didn't realize
What?
the consumption of romances was like
Oh,
so
so
much.
high. Yeah.
Yeah. So like these publishers are wanting to pump out these stories. Now, I would say that those 2 books I wrote were not the best or well written.
Hey, your name's not on it. It's okay. You don't have to tell anybody. Shh. It doesn't
So
count. It doesn't count.
it doesn't count. It doesn't count.
Sweep those under the rug. You got paid.
Yeah,
That's all that matters.
that's exactly right. So technically, A Spy's Fateful Bond, which is the book that I shared about tonight, isn't actually my first book, although it's my first book I've published under this name, my
I
pen
would
name.
still consider that your debut novel because it's your first one. So I would take credit for that. You go, girls. Claim it. Claim it all. Claim it all. Your debut novel.
My
Awesome.
debut.
Yes.
So I've had a whole bunch of fun going from ghostwriting to realize I can write. So that was a really fun discovery because I was just kind of doing it in passing. And then to find out, people actually like my stories, which is super cool and very like mind
Exciting.
boggling. I,
Yeah.
I feel very, the imposter syndrome is so real. It
Oh,
is so,
girl. You know what? I don't think you can ever get rid of that. I think so. I have a theory about this and why people have it. And I think it's not just writers, it's like in every career. It's because here, I'm going to turn on my thing and I'm going to show you this is what I tell. I used to teach girls. I was like, here's the triangle of excellence. See, the base at the bottom, I'm going to use in my nose, is really wide. These are all the people who start writing, right? Like tons of people, but they never finished a book. And so as you start to do more and more things, like the triangle gets smaller, and you look around and you're like, man, all these people are amazing. What am I doing here? Right? But you forget that there's this whole big triangle underneath you. But you start looking at the top and you're like, wow, like they're still so far away. How do I belong with these people? And I'm like, you belong there. You're at the top. You're at the tiny little triangle at the very top. You're not at the bottom anymore. So that's so funny. But it is hard for me. Like I still like present at conferences and I still go, oh my gosh, I am the biggest fraud.
I can't even imagine like presenting at conferences. That must be like a little nerve-wracking.
It is. It is. I mean, especially when they like read my bio and I just want to be like, that's somebody else. I don't know who that
I
is.
don't know who that is. What do
So
you typically present at conferences?
So I usually do craft because I really stink at marketing. And so I've won like a couple of awards, not anything major, not like any like no RWA awards or anything, just like local chapter awards. And then my first self-published book, because I actually trad published before I went indie, and my first self-published book got second place in the Rhone Awards in contemporary romance, which just blew me away because I was all like, it was an accident that I even entered it. Like what had happened is I paid for two entries and I was like, oh, oops. And they're like, well, do you have another book? And I was like, well, I have this self-published book, but I don't think it's going to be any good. And it like went to the top. And the girl who actually won that year, because I think it was in 2021 or 2022, I can't remember. She was like one of my really good friends. And she was like, oh yeah, I'd been working for 20 years on that book. And I was like, well, yeah, no wonder it took first place, my word. Like, but I was just, it was humbling and just like, wow, like, okay, I guess I can write with heart and soul and write a story that people would want to read. And it still sells like hotcakes. That is by far my most sellingest book, which is crazy. The- I not all my books are that way. I have a couple of stinkers. Like I have one book that literally I think I've only sold like 17 copies of still. I just can't get it to go. I like put ads on it. I tell people about it. It's okay. My ego is not tied to how many books I sell. So, especially not that book.
Well, and I think one of the first things I ever heard, like once I got into the whole indie publishing thing, was like, whatever you do, don't put all of your feelings towards like your first book or whatever. Let people come in and like critique it and whatever, and give you like constructive
Feedback.
feedback.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that to heart. So I've seen a couple of reviews on the books that I've written, and I'm like, oh, that's too bad that they didn't like it. But for the most part, generally everybody seems to enjoy it, and I'm like, if that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to provide entertainment that
Right.
is like not necessarily, I don't want to say wholesome, that's closed door that people can
Right.
read without fear of like stumbling on
Ah!
something they didn't like or whatever. And I'm like overjoyed that my kids can read it, and I'm not afraid of what's in the book or anything like that. So it's been um
That's
but
really
I just don't tie all my hopes on one of my stories. Like, people like it, great. If not, cool, that's fine.
right. Which is really funny because people say don't read your reviews. And I actually do. I actually love reading my 3-star reviews because the 1 and 2-star reviews, those people are just like, they didn't like your book. This was
Yeah,
not a book for them. They stumbled upon a genre. Maybe they liked your genre, but they don't like your storytelling style. Fine, fine. They are going to hate your book. I don't care about those people. The 4s and 5s, those are usually like my ardent fans. They're going to give me 5s. I mean, I could write a laundry list and and I would be so honored that they would give me 5s. Do you know what I mean? They're just
yeah,
kind and cool people like that read my books. The 3-star reviews I find are the ones that tell me the most
right,
about
yes.
craft issues because they're like, I liked it, however, and I was like, oh, what did they say? And I go and read those and I take notes and I was like, okay, for the next book, it needs to be, a little bit but then I get contradictory stuff. Like one person was like, it began slow, and the other one was like, whoa, it moved too fast. And I was like,
You can't win them all. Can't win them all.
so, but how fun for you. So you have 2 books out.
No, I have 6.
You have 6 books out from the last year. That's amazing.
I
So what
told you
else
I
have
have a
you
problem.
written? I have a problem. I can only publish a couple of books a year. That's my problem. I'm a slow writer. But okay, keep going. Tell us about your other books.
Yeah. So I have book 1, book 2,
Yep.
and I'm doing the two side characters in here. So Mallory and Garrick, the half brother of the female character. They are both getting books, and Garrick's story just came out last Saturday. So it's that's really fun and really exciting, especially because it's kind of standalone ish. Like it's just his story, whereas these two books were the same couple, but it was kind of like I could just make it into one book. Truly, I could have
Right,
put it into just one book,
right.
but I kind of needed the mental break to continue the story. And so Garrick's story was a whole bunch of fun to write, mostly because it was really fun to see how the characters interacted. And I didn't actually plan this one out as much as I did the other two, so I kind of pants that one a little bit.
That's it's not bad. There are people who only pants their books, which I think is like terrifying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I did at the beginning, but that's because I didn't know, what I was doing. I was learning my process, but
Right. And normally I like to outline like every chapter,
Mhm.
but it was really interesting to kind of see how the characters interacted in my head and how that kind of came out. So I have three books in that series now. I have this one called Rooted in Secrets.
Oh, nice.
This is the slow burn one, the one my daughter wished had a kiss in it. This one was a lot of fun to write, but also challenging. This has a really strong mental health rep in it. So the female character has an anxiety disorder. I have an anxiety disorder, or I do, or I don't. I just got diagnosed with ADHD, and apparently ADHD and anxiety go together. So I don't know if I actually have
Yeah.
that or if it's just ADHD.
I mean, it's like
Um,
this overlapping Venn diagram of everything, depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, all of these things. It's just, we're
I
all of
guess
that.
yeah. I'll take them all. I'll take them all. I'll start
I
collecting
got
them.
all the
That's
letters. I have
I'll
all the
take all
letters.
the letters. But this is like a part of a massive world with 12 other authors. And so it's set within this same world or this same
Fun.
realm, the Aeneas realms. And it's going to have 33 books in it in total in the entire series, three of which are going to be mine. And it's my kingdom is the plant kingdom. So her abilities is to be able to,
Green.
yeah, manipulate plants, and she is a scientist who studies the effects of certain plants. And so it's a story about her finding more information about the plants that she's studying, but stumbling onto this drug that has been taking or has been sold in the under or the why am I speaking
Black
so silly?
market.
Yeah, the black market, the underground market, however you want to say it. But the thing about this drug is that if it's administered to someone, they forget what happens within 12 hours. And turns out the person who administers it can actually control the person. And I based the drug actually off of this plant in Brazil that
Ooh,
has the legend says that if you eat this plant or ingest this plant, you forget up to 12 or 24 hours of what you did. And there have been stories of these people ingesting this and waking up with like,
no memory.
um, no memory, but like scars on their bodies. Like, oh yeah, no, it's like, it's insane. I stumbled upon the article and I was like, that'd be really interesting in a book. So, and
Cool.
it's kind of like legendy folklore in Brazil,
But that
but
works so
yeah,
well.
it was a really interesting twist. So the beginning of the book, you find out that the male main character's friend ingested this drug. Somebody drugged him, and they harvested parts of his organs. And so he ends up going on this kind of like crusade of sorts to find out who's behind it and to stop them, because he has a background in mercenary work. So
Mm.
it's very interesting. And then he meets female character when he goes to find out that, oh, this drug is actually made in the plant kingdom, and he meets the female character. So yeah, so
Oh, that sounds really interesting too.
I that was a lot of fun. And so the next two books in that series will be out this year. It'll
Awesome.
be pretty quick succession for those two as well.
Fantastic.
And then I did two anthologies. One that's on Amazon right now, but it's going to be coming off. Actually, it might be coming off, yeah, end of this week. That one was about a childhood sweetheart love, but it takes place in this outlaw city in a realm that has a lot of political turmoil, and they lived in this misfit kind of city, and they were in love, and then one day the woman, the Catalina, is sold off to pay for her father's debts, and Savan, the male main character, spends 10 years trying to find her,
Oh, wow.
until he stumbles upon her in like the weirdest of circumstances, and he finds her finally. But he had to become this monster, this yeah, terrible person. He made really terrible decisions in order to get enough power to try and find her. So it's called Loving the
Wow.
Monster.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the last one I've written is also within that same world, and it's called Loving the Kraken, and it happens to be about a man who shifts into a kraken.
That's awesome. I bet they sell really well. I've seen books like that, these shifter books, they do really well.
They do. I wasn't planning on writing a shifter book, actually. I was
Right.
just somebody asked me if I would be a part of this anthology, and the theme was shifters, and I wanted to keep it within the worlds that I had built already. And the Fae King series, it didn't really fit with what I had established. But the Loving the Monster series that I haven't really kind of built out yet, and I probably will have to do that later towards the end of this year. Um, had the ability to kind of shift and bring in new characters.
That's
And
cool.
I was setting up like this bigger kind of evil in that world, and I kind of set it up in this book. They happen to be like the premise behind the major antagonist is that there's this group of people called the Reavers who actually essentially sell parts of their soul for power, exemplifying like you can look at it as like greed in our everyday world, or you can look
Right.
at it. So I kind of use it as a
Very
symbol of
symbolic.
people selling parts of themselves for power, and so
Power.
these people seek to get power. And so this Kraken actually protects an island, and he failed in his duty of protecting these people, but he still feels burdened, and so he ends up finding one of the few that are still surviving, and it happens to be our female character, in order to try and save her from the Reavers who are looking to kill her people. So
Oh.
it's been, yeah, it was a really fun story as well. Both of them are a little bit short, and I'll be expanding them once I get them back from the anthologies.
Yeah, I mean, anthologies are usually like short stories and novellas and stuff, but to take that and expand it would be really interesting.
I do you have you done no like any anthologies?
I have done, so what I've done is I did a multi-author series and we were going to put together an anthology. So I ended up writing my part. I don't know if they did. So I ended up with like a really short story. And I've often thought maybe I should go back and like expand that. But no, no, I just write short stories for the things because nobody ever got our act together enough to put together an anthology.
I they're interesting. I have enjoyed writing the shorter stories, but I gotta tell you, it is painful. Like I want to be able to.
Expand.
Yes, you have
So
to be like right to the point. You have to jump right into the story,
guys,
and it's like,
it's a different
I,
skill.
oh my goodness, I
So
don't think it's mine.
no, and you know what? It doesn't have to be. So it's really interesting because I was actually going to write a prequel novella for my fantasy series. Um, I decided to cut it into parts because the first part was 30,000 words. I'm like, oh, this novella is going to be a full novel by the time
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm in part A right now, and I'm just, I'll write the rest.
I know. I seriously talented people can write short stories.
It does
To be
take a
able
lot
to
of
be
talent
that concise and that
and
gripping.
powerful. It's the short, powerful descriptions is just
Yeah.
I took a short story writing class in college and I was like, wow, this is not a genre that I can capture really well. I just always wanted to tell these crazy stories. Oh, we're running out of time. We got 10 minutes left, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, they I have a little timer now going. But yeah, I mean, it does take a skill and if you can master it, that's great. But people like to read novels and I like I like writing novels. If you can write a good short story, I mean, I give them away as readers' magnets. So, I mean, they are
Yeah.
in our
Yeah,
business.
and I had heard of that as well to do that. But I
Hmm.
feel like both stories I kind of left off on a okay, but what happens next? Like it's kind of
Right.
like a to be continued.
Yeah.
everybody's relatively happy.
Right. Happy for now, but there's still
Yeah.
some unanswered questions.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
still take it and expand it, which I love, and people
Yeah.
will love that. If they love your world, they will want that expansion.
Yeah, so I mean that so those are the stories I currently have published.
Yay. Well, it sounds like it's been a wonderful year. You said you've only been publishing for a year, so that's awesome. That's so amazing. Like, congratulations to what a wonderful year that has been, I'm sure. I'm sure you've learned a lot too. I feel like
Yes.
the learning curve is steep.
I I'm somewhat embarrassed to kind of like go back to read my first book and go, "Oh my, I've changed quite a bit." But I also noticed too, this was interesting. I didn't realize at first. It helps to read other people's books in between writing mine. Do you find this?
Oh, I am always reading something else. I've got Heartless right here, because I read a lot of YA fantasy.
Okay.
I have like a TBR that is out of control.
Yeah, but I was also because I can get like super consumed and hyper focused in on one of my stories, but then I realized that if I like read somebody else's stuff and get into somebody else's world, my writing somehow does better. I don't know why, though. I've got no idea.
And it doesn't even matter the genre because like I write, romance and all these other things, but even if I'm reading Brandon Sanderson, because he has like
Right.
this thick books, I feel like my writing is just so much better. Like I get in there and I'm like, oh, I feel so much more poetic. Brandon isn't necessarily a poetical writer. His
Right.
prose is actually really plain, but I just feel like my brain is stimulated or something that it helps like get my brain thinking, or maybe I see images differently or something through reading.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, my family just walked in. They're probably all like wondering what's going on. Probably let you go. And thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. And I'm looking forward
Absolutely.
to getting your book. I will leave it in the link of the video, and I will also post it on the readers group page. I will also send it to that newsletter, and hopefully people will pick up your book and then subscribe to your newsletter. I'll leave all that information and all that stuff so they can check you out and hopefully pick up some more books too. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. I really, really enjoyed my
yeah.
time. So thank you so
Oh, and
much.
you know what? This is like the best part of being an author is meeting all these wonderful authors who are brilliant and creative, and it's just that's the best part right now for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Awesome.
so
Well,
much for
you have a
giving me
good
the
evening. Stay
opportunity.
warm up in Ontario. Like it's seriously like 19 degrees outside, but the heat didn't kick on, so it's cold inside. I'm just saying it's cold inside. So that's why I got this. All right. Have a good night.
Yes, you
Thank
too.
you so much.
Bye.